the story is funny because our government actually sent us to Mexico on a culture. Mexico had a big festival called the Festival of Cervantino, honoring Cervantes, the man who wrote Don Quixote. And culture groups from all over the world came to celebrate. Dancing, artists, singers, musicians, sculptors, everybody were in there, writers, poets. And so our government asked us to go and represent them. And here's the thing. We didn't know at the time that Mexico had a ban on pop music, Mexico City. You could not perform pop music in Mexico City. You had to take it 100 miles in a circumference, anywhere outside of the Mexico City zone. So you had to go to stadiums or ballparks or bullpens too, if you had a big festival, because Mexican people, when the music hit them, you know, they're really animated. So we went, and what we learned, as soon as we did one concert, we noticed that the audience grew. And you see, what Mexico did was that they televised the performance so that the people all over Mexico could see. And the last show was to be at an arena in Mexico City, which of course they allowed because they thought we're a cultural group, not a pop group or what we were, you know. But having done 3 shows in different cities around Mexico, we were learning from the people that we were one of the favorites of the festival because people were tuning in on the TV to watch us. So when we actually got to Mexico City to play this concert, I would think the place hold about 3,000 to 4,000 people, but eventually 10,000 people came.
Wow.
And created a stir, and it was a hell of a concert. I mean, we did great. But then a wise promoter saw us and decided to bring us back to Mexico now to tour Mexico, like 6 weeks of tour in Mexico. And it was great. And I must say it was one of the best money each band member ever made on a tour, because they really paid us well to come back. And they had maybe on a 6 weeks tour, maybe 30 shows. They probably had about 2 shows that weren't sold out. But the rest were good. And then we made a deal with that promoter to release 1 album with his company. Okay. The other one, no, how that materialized, I don't know, but it's out there. And we did great. We did great in Mexico, but again, we never really got back and kept the ball rolling.
I had a feeling that it had something to do with management, why things just sort of went to a screeching halt.
Yeah, every time. Chalice is, we have been blessed, but we're not lucky.
Right.
Things have happened. Because of management, we lost that European thing that we were going great guns with. I should tell you the story. When we were in Europe and we were going really, really good. We were in Hamburg having breakfast one morning, and the guy who introduced us to our German manager, who is great, by the way, the guy who was looking about our business in Germany, was a man that I really love and respect to this day. It wasn't his fault why Chalice lost that whole scene. But we were sitting in Hamburg having breakfast, and the guy who introduced him to Chalice came in with this guy, tall, Jerry curl guy with skeleton earrings and chain wrapped around him and thing. And he said to our manager, the German guy, KP was his name, was KP, this guy is an artist, and and looking for somebody to manage him. And KP said, I can't take on nobody now. I'm focusing on Chalice. And all right. I said to the guy, you know, when you look on somebody and then just have this look, and I said to the guy, I said, you can leave one of your demo tapes with him? Say, yeah. And give me a cassette. And I take the cassette. And everybody had a cassette player. And I go up to my room in my hotel and play the cassette. And I called two of my members of the group, two keyboard players. I said, brethren, and I have to listen to this. And when I listen to it, I said, whoa, give it to KP. And I go downstairs and I give it to KP. I said, KP, you have to listen to this. And he put the cassette in the pocket and we go about the business. The following year when we went back to tour, but there was the guy, same guy, KP had signed him and we met in London. And KP sent him on tour with us, not to perform, but this guy was having some problems because he was an American soldier and he went AWOL and couldn't live in Germany anymore. So KP moved him to England and he just came on tour. Me and him became very close friends. And we went to Istanbul together. Everything was there. It was there on that last tour. At the end of the tour, KP called a meeting in London and said, look, here's what. I have signed this dude and Chalice, I have no papers with you. We're going on this journey for the last 3 years with love alone. I have no papers on you. I cannot go into Polygram, Universal, Sony and ask and sell you because I don't have nothing to say. I represent you. And I said to him, KP, we have a manager in Jamaica. And you know that. And say yes. And because we have been sending him his 20% along the road all the while. I said, I have to clear it with him. But if it was us, KP, I'd sign that right now. Sometimes it don't pay to be too honest. Anyway, I didn't think it was fair to the guy back in Jamaica to just sign with KP and forget him, right?
Right.
But you know, there's a saying that ask for forgiveness, don't ask for permission. Anyway, we came home and we told our manager. KP said he will fly down to Jamaica and sign the deal with our manager. Make him up, he will be a part of it, you know. And we think everything is hunky-dory. But what KP said to us was, if Chalice boss, we're pulling this guy with us. And if this guy boss, he's going to pull Chalice with him. It's just so it go. And we agree. And KP come to Jamaica. And we eat jerk chicken the Saturday night and drink Red Stripe beer and then go to the meeting the Sunday morning for KP to fly out the Sunday afternoon. And our roadie was to take him to the airport. And when our roadie come back, now remember these are days without cell phone. When our roadie come back, him said KP was crying at the airport because the guy never signed the deal, signed it. And I called the manager and said, what? And him said, no, it's all right. I have better things planned and blah. Well, nothing ever came of it. We had to fire him a year later. But here's the irony, you know. You see, the guy that KP had signed, KP put all his work into that guy. And in 1987, 88, he became the biggest star on the planet. 7 million units of his album were sold when they got released. His name at the time was Terence Trent D'Arby.
Whoa.
So let that sink in.
Wow.
So can you imagine if Chalice had ridden on the back of Terence's success? We could have gotten a record deal with any company.
Oh, yeah.
I have a letter from Terence saying you only got £30,000 for the advance in his album, but he's going to try and make every cent count. And he did, introducing the hard line, according to Terence Trent D'Arby. 7 million. Trust me. No, and then he blew it. He blew it. But I guess he still continues to tour under a different name.
Dance Hall Monic Orchestra.
Right.
Where did that idea come from?
Actually, from Third World. I have to give Third World the credit because they used to do this arrangement at the end of one of the songs, the finale, when Cat would play the cello. But it wasn't like dance hall. It was more or less some kind of classical arrangement. And I thought that we should have, even for show-wise, to just to do shows, that we should try and arrange a classical thing with a dancehall beat. And we all got together in the rehearsal room, and the two keyboard players, Mike and Alla, came up with this riff, and it was great. It was great. And I'm saying, all right, what we're gonna do? So Trevor, I said to Trevor, look, Trevor, he was very versatile. I said, but let's just use this as a showpiece, and you imitate Pinchers and General Trees and I think Tiger.
Yeah.
And you imitate those three on stage. And then you come back now as yourself. And I wrote this classical piece. I wrote that for him. And we started to do it as a showpiece on concerts and used to mash up the place. Had no intention of recording this because it was just a great showpiece. And then one concert, I remember coming off the stage, and Sly Dunbar came to me and said, yo, you're not recording that song. And I said, no, I don't think we're going to record it. And Sly said, well, if you don't record it, I am going to record it. And you know, we rushed to the studio because Sly don't play around. So we went to the studio, and here's a piece of luck. We recorded the track at Dynamic Sounds. And I asked Love in there because of our connection to come and do a piece on it for me. I didn't want Trevor imitating anybody on record, right? It didn't make sense. So Love in there came and he did the first part. And we were there trying with the idea of what we're gonna do for the other parts. And I just came out the studio to have a cigarette. And who was coming down the walkway but Papa San? And I said to him, son, give me 16 bars now. And him said, yeah, man, no problem. And he come in the studio and him listen. And it was like one take, bam, 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 bam. Thank you very much. Go. And these guys never ask. I mean, we give them credit. They give them the publishing and the publishing credit. But them never said to me, boy, I want $10 or $5, you know? And then the same thing happened the following day. I come out of the studio and there was Tiger. And I said, Tiger. And Tiger came in, same thing. Boom, done. And then Trevor finished it with the operatic thing. We used to perform it with Trevor, and then when Trevor left the group, we still continued performing it with our lead singer, Dean Stevens. But he got fed up of this. He never wanted to do no gimmick thing anymore. And I mean, I can't blame him sometimes. Sometimes you just want to go into serious music. But we get called upon so much to perform this tune that I am now thinking of ways in how to perform it without being sophomoric, you know what I mean? Just to try and so. But it's still, I even tried doing an instrumental version, which we did. We did the instrumental version back then. But the instrumental version didn't come out on record.
What can you tell me about this Grateful Dead tribute project called Fire on the Mountain?
We had signed the dance Hall Monic song to a company called Power out of New York. And at the time, there was a young man working for Power called Henry Cairo, otherwise known as Henry K. And he had given them the idea that they should do this Grateful Dead in reggae with various artists. And they said, how are you going to do it? And he said, well, it makes sense to do it in Jamaica because that's where most of the artists would be found anyway. And they asked him, where are you going to get the musicians? And he said, well, I'll find musicians. And they told him, since they had just signed this Chalice song, one of the managers of Power told him, find Wayne Armond, he'll help you. So he came to Jamaica and he found me. And I've heard of the Grateful Dead, but I've never heard one Grateful Dead song. If you ask me, sing one Grateful Dead song, I couldn't do it. Anyway, he came and saw me and we had a meeting and it went well. I mean, our personalities hit off, nice. And of course, I pushed for Chalice to do as much as of the backup studio work as possible, the session work. And so we went into the studio and he gave me this list and CDs of this Grateful Dead song. And we both went over and picked the songs that we thought which artists would work. And I chose the Fire on the Mountain for Chalice because for one, it was the most simple to record. You just needed a great groove and it would work. And we did that and we got Judy Mowat, we got Wailing Soul, we got the great man Joe Higgs, and we did an album of Grateful Dead songs. Well, the album seemed to have taken off in the US and was doing well, so well that we got called to do a 4-city tour around that album. So Chalice, we rehearsed 4 songs with Judy, with Wailing Soul, with the Mighty Diamonds and Joe Higgs. We would open the show for half an hour, bring on each artist, back them up with their 4 songs, all included one of the Grateful Dead song that they covered on the album. And then we would have a finale with all of us on stage. But we did these 4 shows and they were well attended. The album went into the Billboard charts then. And the album, when Henry K had checked for me one time, the album had done over 400,000 units. And we all said, wow, all right, things looking up because the contract we had stated that we would get X amount of dollars. Because up to that point, we didn't get any advance on what we did. We just got paid as studio musicians.
Right.
And all of us artists was supposed to get somewhere in the region of 10 grand as an advance. Well, when the album sold like that many, Power just declared bankruptcy and the managers moved to the Bahamas. And we got nothing. So that's the story of the Grateful Dead album. Well, I wrote 2 songs for Marcia Griffiths. The most successful one was one called Woman. And 4 years ago, I wrote one for her called Rhythm Half a Roll with she and Lady G. And then Righteous Youth for Richie Spice. And then I wrote a song called Cheetah for Richie Spice brother Spanner Band. And oh man, that song is that song. There's another story behind that song. You have the time?
Let's do it.
Chris Blackwell had just sold Island Records to Polygram, and unfortunately, we had just released the album called Simea. He sent for me after Simea came out and said, you know, Wayne, this album will do it for you guys. After turning back every one of the albums we ever sent him. And he said, unfortunately, I'm not with Island anymore, but I'm going to send it to the guy in Polygram with my because they own Island. So somebody new take over Island. I must send it to the guy and with my personal recommendation. And he sent it with his secretary, a girl named Trish. Handwritten note, well, nothing never happened. And then I saw Chris Blackwell, one of his assistants, like about a year after. And he said to me, boy, one of you guys in Chalice messed with somebody in Ireland because bad that them don't even want to hear your name called in Ireland. And I had no idea why to this day, I can only speculate that maybe it was one of the managers that we had that did some kind of unscrupulous business or didn't. Because sometimes when a guy said to you, one hand wash the other, and you say, and you're too clean, and you say, no, I'm not into that. It screw you up. I don't know what the deal was, but I know that we are persona non grata in Ireland Records for some reason.
Mm.
But it just so happened that he started Island Jamaica now in Jamaica and put this girl Trish in charge of it. And she signed Spanabana as her first artist. And she went around to various producers and asked them to produce songs for this album. And there was a group of two guys, Fata and Bulby, the company's Fata Eyes. They asked them to produce something. And Fata called me and said, we them asked me to produce something for Spanner, but I don't have a song. Give me a song. So I sat down in my living room and wrote this song. It took me 15 minutes. It was just one of them things that was come to you. Song called Cheetah. And I took it to them, the demo with just me and my acoustic guitar. And about 3 weeks later, them called me and said, come in the studio and listen to this. Well, when I went, I was blown away. The production was great. The vocal performance, great. Everything was great. I love the song. And it went and was released on the album by Spanner. This is a story I heard. The lead single was sent by Island Records to BBC, and they started to play this single that was sent to them. But they weren't getting no traction. BBC wasn't getting no good feedback. And one DJ in BBC scanned the album and played Cheetah, and the switchboard light up. People want to know who is that? What song is that? Where them can get it. They called Island Records and they said to Island Records, look, the song you're pushing with Spanabana ain't working, but this song named Cheetah is grabbing the attention of people. What should we do? Island said, give us 2 days. And they go back and check. And when they check, they realize that's the only song on the album they don't have the publishing for. And they reach out to my publisher, who was a French guy, and they said to him, we want some publishing on this song. And him, being a stubborn asshole, says that they can't remove the song from the album now that it's out. So him not giving, they are a big fish and him is a small fry, and he's not giving them none of the publishing. And when the guy from BBC called back and said, what must we do with this song? They said, kill it. And it died. A song that could have had enough potential. Enough.
Mm-hmm.
I'm even thinking about doing a version myself and putting it back out there. See if it might have the same appeal. But the song was so well produced, I said, man, it's going to be hard to come up to that level. You can't even find that song on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Spanabana did another version, but it was nowhere near that original. Sometimes these things happen in the studios like magic. Can't reproduce it. If you think about it, it could be the next Cool Runnings movie. I mean, you're going to have to fictionalize some of it, right? But look, here you have a man coming to you and say, God send me to you to form a band. Then you have the selection of the musician. Then you have moving to the country and living in this bush and fighting and making music. And then you have going on the first tour of the US. where you don't have any money to get to from one place to the next, and you just barely make 13 man in one Motel 6 room. Man sleeping in the bath, man sleeping on tabletop, 4 in the bed, 2 on the floor, until eventually you get out and you do a show where you can earn enough money just to come back home. And then you start to be the first reggae group to tour Istanbul, the first reggae group to play in Mexico City under this band. That was lifted after we left, by the way. And then how things run where the band split up because nothing was happening, and we all went off in different directions. 3 other guys went to play with Alpha Blondie in the mid-90s. Mikey went with Third World, I went with Jimmy Cliff. And then we didn't come back together, and this would be the final scene of the movie now. In 2009, Singing Melody, who you might know from this group called Lost, but he has his own career. He came to me and says, look, I'm doing this concert, and it's called Symphony Under the Stars, and we're working with a symphony orchestra. And if Chalice don't come on that show, I am not keeping it. I said, whoa, the Chalice hadn't played together for a number of years. And I called up the guys, said, look, you up to doing this? And everybody said, yeah, we're in, of course we're in. And we went and performed this show with the symphony orchestra behind us. Nice. And it was a wonderful success for us. People welcome us back. It was great. And that would be a great finale for the end of the movie, with us playing to a sold-out crowd with a big symphony.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot. And to add to the drama, our keyboard player was murdered, was shot dead in '99. Original keyboard player.
Right.
And we have lost 2 other guys since that by cancer. Robbie died 5 years ago, and Trevor died. He never spoke to me for many years, because when Mikey was murdered, I was actually on tour with Jimmy Cliff, and I was on the other side of the world. And you know, the strangest thing is that, as I told you, Mikey was working with Third World, and I was working with Jimmy Cliff. And we met in France 2 weeks before he died, and we had dinner together and talked about bringing back the band together in the year 2000. This was 1999. And we talk about, yeah, man, we're going to get all the experiences that we get from Jimmy Cliff and we get from Third World and Alpha Blondie. We're going to just bring back and get some new stuff going on. And it's the fact that he was murdered while the band could not get back together. We tried different keyboard players, and it wasn't that they weren't great, but when you remove a man like that from the nucleus of the thing, it's so hard, mentally and physically, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So that was basically. So if we were to do a movie, believe me, it would be chock full of a lot of stuff that could make a good story.